China's army of irregular recyclers face scrap heap. Unlicensed rubbish collectors are frowned upon, despite helping keep cities clean, writes Patty Valdmere. China is often accused of all but destroying its environment in the name of economic growth. But the same naked capitalism that has poisoned Chinese skies and waterways is hard at work in the streets of Shanghai, cleaning up the mess. China has a 10 million strong illegal army of rubbish entrepreneurs, and in Shanghai, they can seem ubiquitous. Three-wheeled bicycles piled impossibly high with plastic, cardboard, and styrofoam ply the streets. Pensioners pick through rubbish bins for drink cans or big empty water bottles from tourists. Grannies brave the subway at rush hour to collect commuters' discarded newspapers. Migrant workers go door to door like ragmen, buying up the cast-offs from Shanghai's conspicuous consumption. Designer water bottles and flat-screen television boxes which would otherwise clog up the city's landfills. While China's leaders bicker with environmentalists over emissions targets, it can appear that its people are quietly getting on with the task of making the planet a better place to live. But while the government has a grand plan for the greening of China, the country's trash pickers are decidedly not a part of it. During the 2008 Beijing Olympics, they were largely run out of town, with disastrous consequences for city waste, as recyclables piled up on the pavements. And recyclers in Shanghai's uber-chic French concession are already making plans to leave town during the city's 6-month World Expo, which starts May 1st. They're mostly unlicensed migrants without city residency documents and therefore vulnerable to any crackdown on rubbish peddlers and to a general Expo-inspired anti-migrant campaign. The irony of such a purge is clearly lost on the government. Expo's theme is green cities, and many Expo pavilions have been constructed with recycled materials. The past year has been tough already for China's recyclers. The global financial crisis savaged rubbish prices, which still languish well below their pre-crisis levels. Kaiyan Fen has a paper and plastic recycling business on the outskirts of Shanghai, where she lives with her 8-month-old baby, in a shack next to a muddy yard, strewn with twisted bits of scrap metal, broken toilet seats, and twine. She says Shanghai residents stopped selling their waste during the crisis because it was simply not worth it to them. It was a big blow to our business, she says, noting that profits still have not recovered. She now has to sell 10 kilograms of paper to make a single renminbi profit. But Fu Li Ping, the head of the Shanghai Waste Administration, has little positive to say about Shanghai's rubbish brigade, arguing that their motives have more to do with profits than the environment. Their recycling stations are eyesores that are being removed as part of the greening of Shanghai for Expo, she says, without a hint of irony. Shanghai has its own plan to encourage recycling by residents, which requires them to store recycling in their minuscule flats for a month at a time, in exchange for points they can redeem for recycled pencils and other trinkets online. Ms. Pho hardly disputes the fact that anyone rich enough to have space in their flat for a month's worth of newspapers, in one of the world's priciest property markets, probably could do without another pencil. The government has legitimate reason for concern. Though recyclers reduce the rubbish going into landfills, and reduce public tensions too, since residents protest when overflowing landfills mean it must be burned, the byproducts of illegal recycling can be toxic and dangerous. Itinerant recyclers dismantling a laptop for scrap can often leave plenty of other waste behind when they're done. Shanghai wants to regulate the recyclers, and even issue them with uniforms. The government looks at these people as disorder, says Adam Minter, author of the blog Shanghai Scrap. They're like Mao's army during the Long March days. Very irregular, but very efficient. The government wants to turn them into a regular army. But that will take time, and in the meantime, the government is working all out to increase private consumption. Whatever will happen to all those boxes?